This week we're going to work on geometry. So geometry has been around for a very long time. In fact, it's probably older than what they even have recorded, which is around 2000 BC is where they saw some of the first writings for it. But there are a lot of famous people who do geometry out there. Thales is one. Pythagoras, we'll go through the Pythagorean theorem, but he did a lot more work, and he had a group of people together that did a lot of work with geometry. And Euclid, who's considered the father of geometry, and he has this book called Euclid's Elements, which is a lot of geometric properties. In fact, what we're going to be doing, a lot of this two-dimensional geometry is considered Euclidean geometry. So that's what we'll be working on. So where we're going to start off here is just some basic definitions to get us started. All of the work that we do is on a plane, which a plane is just a flat surface. So what you could imagine is just like a piece of paper, like what we're working on, what we have to draw on. That would be a plane. But a property is that it continues forever. So it's like we have this piece of paper, but it would be an endless piece of paper that spreads out infinitely in all directions. So you'd have this infinite space, and that's where we can draw our shapes, and what we'll talk about in this video is points and lines, but the idea is that it should continue forever. Now, a point is just a location on the plane, and it doesn't hold any sort of space. So it has no dimensions. So it's just to mark a location, and a point would just appear like that. Maybe we'd give it a name. We'll talk about the notation at the end of this, but it would just be a dot to show a location on the plane. Now, a line is made up of infinite points that all connect together. So I'm sure all of you have seen a line before, and how we draw it is just like that, or even, let me get a better line here. Here we go. So we have a line. Now, in geometry, when we say a line, it should continue forever. So that's where what we would do is at the end of this line here, in fact, right now it's just a line segment, we would want to draw some arrows on it to show that it continues forever and ever. But this idea of it being made up of infinite points is that really what's putting this line together on a much smaller scale is each of these points that are following this pattern here. And they all line up. So when you have all of these points there, it appears to be a line. Now, what I had drawn before is actually a line segment, and this begins and ends at 2 points. So where the line, just a line, would continue forever, what would happen with a line segment is if I drew something similar there, instead of putting arrows at the end, we would have this beginning point and ending point, and that's what makes a line segment. Let's talk about notation real quick. So for a point, what we'd often do is label our points, and we typically use letters of the alphabet. We kind of want to avoid numbers. We'll reserve that for measurements. So what we would do is, if we have a point, what we would do is just give it a letter. Typically we start at good old A for the alphabet. And if we wanted to write this out in terms of in a sentence, we would just say point A, and however we need to refer to it. Now with a line, so if we have something like this that's continuing forever in both directions, they might describe 2 points that the line goes through. Let's say they just describe A and B there. And again, there's infinite points there, but typically they refer to a line about what you need to draw a line with is you have to start with 2 points, and then you can connect them to kind of understand the pattern of that line. How we would write this if we wanted to refer to this line in a sentence, what you would do is you'd write the 2 letters B, and then for a symbol on top of them, That would be our symbol for a line. So you'd have the line, and then you'd want to have the two arrows there to show that it does continue forever and ever. Very similar thing happens with a line segment. As you can imagine, our notation is going to change based on the fact that we don't have arrows, A and B. So in a sentence, how we would write it is we'd have A, B, and then you draw a line, and then you just don't have the arrows on top. So there's some definitions and some notation to get us started with geometry.